Okay, so we've got three great HMO experts. I'm going to start off by kicking off a few questions, and then we'll open it up to you guys to ask some of your burning questions on HMOs. And so let's just get going, I guess. Now, one of the questions that's asked often when people talk about HMOs, they ask, should you let them on a license or should you let them on an AST? I mean, I know, Jim, you've got some views on that. I mean, could you share with people what the differences are and why you should choose one over the other?
There is no difference. You don't need to have a written agreement when you let a property. So any piece of paper you have is meaningless. It comes down to the legal position. Between you and me, you won't tell anyone about this, but if you use licenses, a lot of tenants don't understand what a license means. So you just tell them they've got a right to occupy, and if they don't behave, they can leave. And some of them believe you. So if they believe you, who are you to put them right? But the reality is, it comes down to how they're occupying. I use licenses, and I've done so for years. Unfortunately, now a lot of tenants are getting a bit wiser, and unfortunately the CAB are upping the game. There are so many lawyers lying around now.
Do you want to tell them who the CAB is?
Oh yeah, Citizen Advice Bureau. The CAB, that's where your tenants go to, and they realise that these licenses may or not stand up. But if it works, it works, and if it doesn't work, you just have to evict them as you would do with an AST. The other great advantage of using a licence is, if anyone can explain to me what the difference is between serviced accommodation and an HMO, I'd like to know, because I've just been researching it, and I've just written another book on it. Serviced accommodation, the legal position of it. So if you issue a licence, that probably indicates that it could be serviced accommodation. It depends on the length of stay, and no one I don't know if you've had anyone moving into your HMO and saying, great, I'm going to live here for life. This is my home. I'm going to have long-term occupation of it. Most of them just say, this will do until I find another wife, or I can find a flat, or whatever. So it's just one of those grey areas which gives you the thumbs up.
What about you guys? Do you have a view on licenses or ASTs?
Yeah, we use licenses all the time, but it's only when the police stop us, and usually for driving. So, but ASTs is what we normally use. So I don't know whether we have a different tendency or not, Jim, compared to you, maybe. But whether we have different sort of clients, you know. Oh yeah, you definitely. But yeah, we use ASTs.
I mean, I consulted some legal people on this issue a few years ago, and what was relayed to me was it all depends on whether if it's a spade, the courts will treat it as a spade. So if you offer them exclusive possession of a particular defined space, then that is an AST, no matter what you say. But if you don't offer them a defined exclusive possession of any space, so for example, we will offer you a room in a house within 1 mile radius of Archway Tube. I mean, we have licenses which are vague. So because all the rooms are the same, we do them up to the same spec, and the landlord reserves the right to move people from room to room, but you give people a week's notice so that if they are uncomfortable with that, they can go. But because you're not offering exclusive tenancy of a space, it's a license, which is what hotels have, apparently. Is that your understanding? So there are a lot of confusions about licenses. Another question that comes up all the time is, tenants want self-containment and a bit of facilities in the room, but if you go too far with providing self-contained facilities such as kitchens, hobs and showers and all of that, then it becomes a flat. So when is it a room, and when does it become a flat? Go for it, guys.
I don't think planning actually know.
We've had 10 planners get 10 answers.
Yeah, we'll come to Luton. It's a bit like the Wild West. It's like, basically, we've got one property that's got signed off. Mm-hmm. We've got full kitchenettes in them, sinks, and a little stand-on hob that might have been in the cupboard when the planner came round. But at the end of the day, we've had that signed off, and then we've had other buildings rejected. So we're going round and round with the planners. I think Jim has even more fun than we do with them. But so as it goes, it just depends on your planning and whose desk it lands on, which is so ridiculous because it should be consistent throughout the country, but it's not. So the answer to that is there is no consistency, and it is a planning thing. And we're going round the houses again with another one, and we'll keep going round until we get planning on some of them, and we have them rented out. But it's unfortunate that they can't be consistent and keep it all the same.
So we had an interesting meeting first week back after Christmas, brand new year, and we're sitting down with the planners face to face to discuss the same issue. And so going round and round the table like a round robin, we got to the point where, so how can they define for us what a kitchenette is? And so we can see what the line is that we might be stepping over or keeping within. So it got to the point where they were suggesting that even a fridge in a room could be classed as a kitchenette. So then I said, okay, so a tenant brings in their fridge and plugs it into that socket over there on the wall. Are you saying that that is now a kitchenette? Which, of course, it's not. So they were unwilling, and very interestingly, unwilling and unable to define what a kitchenette is and what a self-contained space meant in a HMO. So that's Luton. I don't know what other respects. Jim, have you got any version?
Yeah, I used to have a lot of problems with planners, but I don't now, contrary to contradictions. I've written a book, HMOs and Planning. It's just available down there. And you don't get any problems with planners if you don't engage with them. So the answer is, don't invite them in, don't deal with them, and they don't have any problems. And yes, they don't know, really. It is a difficult thing. En suites are generally considered okay. As long as you've got a communal kitchen, anything you have in the room is not a kitchenette. Do not use that word. Use a word like tea-making facility. And generally that seems to be okay. But these matters have been dealt with, again, in my other book, 101 Questions and Answers on HMOs. We go into in greater detail. There isn't really an answer, so the answer is just get on with it. It's what your tenants want. You're providing valuable housing. What they need, sod the planners.
I guess I'll just throw in what we do. No one's a planner here, I hope. You do get different answers when you speak to different planners. And the thing is, a lot of the planners, and particularly in enforcement departments, aren't that well trained, and they have to deal with a large variety of enforcements. They're not just dealing with self-contained sort of flats and all of this sort of stuff. So it's difficult to know what all the rules are. But when you actually boil it down, it boils down to a fixed hob. You can actually have a fridge in a room. You can have a sink in a room. Microwave gets a little bit dodgy, but it's a fixed hob. So one of the things we have tea areas because our tenants like to make tea. So a fridge and a sink and a tap, that's all fine. But the hob is sits on the counter and is plug-inable. It doesn't appear on the inventory, and we don't offer it. It's just free. And that's it, really. It's not a kitchen. Anyone has any view on that?
Works every time.
Now, a lot of people are converting a lot of different places into HMOs, and I know you guys are all doing some big HMO projects, but some people, say to me, I've got a one-bedroom flat, and I'm just going to use the lounge and the bedroom as an HMO. Can you share some thoughts on the minimum rooms you need in a project to make it viable? Who wants to have a go?
You do the maths and you sit down. Generally, the rule of 5 applies, which is explained in my book, Landlord Rules. And the rule of 5 is the first 2 rooms pay for your mortgage, or if you're doing rent to rent. The third one pays the utilities, because most of the time you pay for the utilities. The fourth one pays for the bills. So the fifth one is what you want, which is the profit. Now, this is where it gets interesting. What does the 6th room give you? More profit. And 7th room, even more profit. And 8th room, even more profit. So that rule seems to work right up to about 10. And then usually the building's a bit larger. But I've done some maths, and sometimes even a 3-bed HMO will work. By the way, if it's 2 beds, it's not an HMO. So you're outside the rules anyway. So it depends on doing your figures. And it comes to the price of the property, the rent you're getting, and what you're including. So you've got people who do this, what's called 2+2 rule, where they give people 2 rooms in the property, usually for unemployed tenants, and they make awesome profit out of it. My problem is I can never get that to work because I never find 2 people who want to live together and share the bills. That doesn't seem to happen very well.
Now, I wanted to go to someone, excuse me, I've had a long day. We did an event in the morning, property coffee morning, had 150 people at that, and now all you guys here. So my sort of putting names to faces, I'm finding it difficult. Someone had a very interesting question about beds in sheds and outbuildings. Who is the, yeah. Can we get the mic over here? So you want a portfolio of beds and sheds, is it? No, seriously, what's your question? Sorry.
Yeah, hi, my name's Brent Curlers, Windsor Property Services. Yeah, I've got quite a few HMOs in Britain's most loved town, which is Slough. And quite a few of my properties have an outbuilding at the end of the garden. In fact, there's 3 in particular that we've rented kind of, you know, I agree with Jim, just don't go to the planners and they don't come to you. But we had we kept on getting letters, etc. And eventually, I emptied these things, got the building people round, and lo and behold, to my complete surprise, they said, "Why on earth are you not letting these out? They're perfectly, you know, for accommodation." So my question, and it's really for anybody, you know, because the number, you know, when you're doing that, your 7 units in your thing and stuff. That, for me, is the key. You know, how many can you get? 5 is okay. 6 is great. You've got a loft and a side extension and whatever. But if you can build an outbuilding and make it work, it's extremely profitable. And I'm just doing one now where I'm doing an extension, the kind of 6-metre permitted development extension.
So what's the question?
Which would be another unit. And has anybody got experience of outbuildings?
Outbuildings.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Luton has got a fair few of beds and sheds, and Luton has also got a strong reputation for low-class landlords, and lots of those beds and sheds are actually, you know, only better than kind of shacks. So as long as you're doing everything to building regs and it's a proper place to live in, then there's no reason not to. Then it's a timeline, I'm guessing, whether you've done it without informing planning, it's a timeline for it to be residential because of how long you've been using it and it's been rented out that way. There's simple laws that govern that, 4 years. So that's the easy maths. If you want to do something without asking permission, if you do it for 4 years and it's done built according to building regs, that will get signed off and you don't have to worry after that. You can even, on the 4th year, put your application in for retrospective or whatever it is. I can't remember now. Yeah.
Certificate of lawful use.
Certificate of lawfulness. Yeah. Yes. Lawful use. Yeah. So the reason we probably don't do that, we have always, I suppose, on our numbers, we've only wanted to build something if it's built on top of the property already, i.e., roof development in the loft space. So if you kind of have the analogy that any money you are putting into the ground, you're not getting that money back. So if you're going to do a foundation for something, we don't get that money back. Whereas if we put a brick on top of a brick that's already there, we do get that money back. We've got high value. So that means that the loft conversions are what we, in our numbers, make money from more so than putting something into the ground. Jim, anything?
Yes, I have plenty of experience of beds and sheds, as they call it. See, as Ranjan said, they don't understand the law. You are allowed to build on the back of your house up to 50% of the available space, as long as it's no more than 7 metres, I think, from the back of the house. Though this may have been relaxed. I haven't read the latest rules. And this is what you need to do, is read the rules, as long as it's used ancillary to the main building. So you can have offices out the back, you can have bedrooms, you can have jacuzzis, games rooms, and somewhere to put your pain-in-the-arse kids, if you wish. Whatever you want to do. So, but people don't like it. And you're not here to be liked. You're here to provide good quality accommodation and don't weaken. The planners tend to bully and push and pretend they've got powers they haven't got. So until you get an enforcement notice, which of course you'll appeal against and fight it all the way down, in the meantime, you're doing what? You're making money out of the property. Ching, 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 ching. So carry on doing what you can. There is no law that says it's a crime not to have planning permission. There's no law to say you must have planning permission. You've got the whole law wrong. In fact, planning permission doesn't even give you planning permission. All it says is the local authority ain't going to object. That's all planning permission is. Most people don't understand that. Read my book, and it will tell you. Even if you get planning permission, that doesn't mean to say you got planning permission. All that means is the local authority won't object, but any other Tom, Dick and Harry can. If you read it, they'll say you can't do anything for 3 months because any other idiot could object. So why are we worrying? It is stifling accommodation. The government are pulling their hair out, saying we need more accommodation. And then you get, as you say, some local authorities say, this seems really good, we need more accommodation. What's wrong with your shed in the back garden? And then you've got others, my area, who hate it and think you're somehow exploiting people by giving them good quality, self-contained accommodation down the bottom of the garden. Once upon a time, it was quite fashionable. Fairies and older times used to keep someone down the bottom of the garden in the pond, or whatever it's called, some sage there. We're just bringing things up to the 20th century. What you fear is fear yourself. This business is one where you do not ask permission. Just do it.
If I can share a little tip with you all, which may feature in Jim's next book. Who knows? If you update the title to 102. If you're in property, you will meet planners from time to time, and I find that when you engage with planners as the owner, as the landlord, then there is an amazing, there's immediately a sort of jarring there in that relationship, because they're sort of lefty or far lefty, and you're this evil capitalist. And the solution I found to that is initially when I didn't employ anyone, I was never the landlord or the owner. I always worked for the owner. So I was sent down to meet the planner with the keys, and I fumble around the doors and all of that, and go in and show them what they want to see, and then they go off. There's no, and now I never go myself. I'll always send someone, because when someone goes as someone is doing their job, meeting someone else who is doing their job, there is just no animosity. And I get told that people get chatting about football and all this sort of stuff because there's just no issue that they have when you're this, because every one of you is an evil capitalist who needs to be stopped. This is the mindset. Okay, who else has got a question? Oh, let's have Louis here. I'll come to you in a minute because he put his hand up super fast. Yeah, go for it, Louis. Stand up so that everyone can see you.
Hi. Question for Jim. You mentioned in your
The
talk...
book.
Yeah.
Go on. Sorry.
I'm sure it is. So my question is, does the permitted development from office to resi automatically allow you to do HMO, or does it just give you the permission for flats, or don't you care?
Right, yes, you bring up an interesting question there. No, it doesn't. It allows you to go to a flat or a house, but it doesn't say what time period. So, strictly speaking, you need to let it out as a flat or a house. You get permission to go to residential, let it out as a house or flat for a few milliseconds, and then you can use the permitted development rights to go to multi-let. But you can't go straight from one to the other. So the story I come up with is I tried letting it to a family, but they didn't like it because the building was not appropriate. So they didn't stay very long. And now I'm multi-letting it. You need to be a bit subtle about how you approach these things. Keep within the law. Know what the rules are, and then sometimes you have to educate the planners as well.
A lot of planning is about your provable intent at any moment in time, which can change, of course. We're all flaky, we change our minds. Go on. Oh, right, okay. Who else? Let's have these guys, and I'll give it to someone on this side of the room. Yeah, go on. Hang on a sec.
Our borough's got Article 4. Will that bugger things up for changing things?
Okay, we've got
I've got all
using
my properties in
planning
that borough.
terminology, which I'm unfamiliar with, but go for it.
Yeah, I sympathise with you. Some of us old boys were around pre-2010. Now, what happened in 2010 is that they said that HMOs were allowed. They brought in what's called C4. C3 is residential. C4 allows you to multi-let the property up to 6 persons. I started in 91, so the whole of the country was, in effect, Article 4. And I created about over 100 HMOs in that time period. I think I said earlier, I find I don't get problems with planners if I don't engage with them. Draw your own conclusion.
Brilliant. Okay, we're going to take one final question, and then we'll wrap up. No one from here? Okay, let's have Saj then. You've come all the way from Birmingham.
Yes, thank you.
Don't they have property meets up there?
Yes, they do.
No,
yes,
come down
I
whenever
run
you
one.
like. No.
So,
Yes, of course you do, yes.
the question is, I get asked quite a lot about saturation point. Are we reaching saturation point? I run a lot of HMOs, speak to a lot of people, and I certainly don't believe we're there. I don't see signs of that, but what's your experience of that and conversations you have around that?
Thank you.
Well, Luton at the moment, I've heard quite a lot of other investors saying, oh, I'm having trouble with my HMO and all this sort of stuff. We're not experiencing it. I don't know whether it's something you're doing or something that's involved in your marketing along the way, because there's loads of little tips and things that we do, i.e. the dressing if we need to dress it. So at the moment, last year, like I said, we achieved 95.8% occupancy. We're going to beat it this year as well. I don't see any slowdown in that at the moment. I think we hit 97 this month, or last month, sorry. So I don't know whether that's other landlords seeing saturation. There's a lot of HMO landlords in Luton as well, but are they doing as good a job as we are?
They're not doing the marketing you're doing.
Yeah,
That's
so
it, really, isn't it?
there's no comparable in that way, if that makes sense. So we're not feeling the effects. Are other landlords feeling the effects? Possibly, because I'm hearing it quite a bit actually from other landlords. But you know, iOccupy's not feeling it. I don't see that.
Well, I mean, we did a percentage calc. Basically, in Luton, we've got over 200,000 people population, and so our portfolio is a percentage of that. And then you look at what's the working range. We're working with working professionals. So what is the range of employment in Luton in terms of, that's our client at the end of the day. So what scope is there for us to be renting to that market? We will probably never need to go outside of Luton. That's it. So people have asked us, how come you haven't gone to other areas? Simple maths. We've got the setup. It's all systemized. The teams are there. And so until we reach some sort of saturation point, we don't know when that will be or how much of a portfolio. I do know another portfolio owner in Luton. He's got £50 million worth of portfolio. He doesn't have a problem. So we're all in the same town. We're all doing different things. Luton is a fantastic market that you could probably, and there are many, many towns up and down and cities up and down the country that you could probably pick any sort of HMO strategy. We've gone for the higher end of things. Jim is operating at different end of things. Profitable on both sides. Nothing wrong with either. Yeah, it's all about what you fancy doing. So you could pick probably 10 different, key people or client type to rent to in a particular area. If you focus on that, you'll do really well. Once you've cornered your market as well, those people, you get known for that and they keep coming back to you. So, don't know what the saturation point will be. Maybe when we find out, we'll let you know.
I think we'll hire a Baker Street bus and do a discovery tour to Luton. That seems to be the place to be. Yeah, go on, Jim.
I'd love to do that. Yeah, I do worry about that. I lie in bed worrying about these things.
In a shed or... Go on.
And I was told when I had 5 HMOs in Wednesbury that I'd saturated the area. I've now got over 20, and I'm still worrying about it. The market is changing in my area. What I let back in the 1990s, you can't let today. Small room, share kitchen and bath, it doesn't happen. The market's going up, and with so many rooms, I've got about 1,000 rooms, I can see patterns. Rooms don't let. On good quality, ensuite rooms, which James and Bill do, we do the same. If you go on the website, you'll see the same thing. Well-dressed, well-presented, fairly large, let. It's my small rooms that don't let very well. So it's the market, and when you talk to people who are struggling, and you say to them, what have you got? You mention the word dressing a room. They haven't got a clue what you mean. You mention to them, are they en suite? And they go, well, that's not an HMO. Well, it is an ensuite. Put kitchenettes in. They're the ones that seem to let. The market's going to get more. It's unfortunately the government created this rule back in 2010 that took away the planning requirement for an HMO. And of course, everyone else wants to charge into this market now. So there's people who ignore planning, but most people don't want to ignore planning. They want to know they can do it. And that's spoiling it for the rest of us, because otherwise I'd be able to let my grotty little rooms now if the market hadn't become so popular. So you have to move further and become more sophisticated and ahead of the curve, providing what people want. And it's not lower price, by the way. I'm charging more for the expensive, nice rooms, and it's always the same thing. When you go into a new property I've converted into an HMO, you get the most expensive room, which is the biggest, it's nice, and you've got the smaller rooms, not such good aspects. Guess which room always lets first? It's the one with the most money. So people go on about, this is what's going to cost. When I was letting to students who were told, oh, you can't break the £50 a week price barrier, you've got to let for 50 quid. By the way, shut me up if you get bored of me. And they went on it. And then what happens? You've got these big high-rise buildings and they charge 160 quid for them. I don't understand how students can afford to pay that kind of money, because I was told they couldn't afford 50 quid. And now they're getting this, but they're providing a better service. So the market is changing. Be aware of that. And you have to be ahead of the curve.
Brilliant. I think that's a good note to end on.